What's good, y'all? It's your boy Abdul Rashid along with
the boss man
and Mr. Tim Evans.
Oh, we gotta come up with a radio a moniker for
hey, all right. We gonna take care of that. We definitely are. You are listening to Elevated Vibes Radio on IntellectualRadio.com. If you guys want to join this conversation, the number is 708-223-8953, or you can hit us up on Facebook Live. All right, everybody. Let's check it out. We can all agree with the statement, our children are our future. Yet, a number of them are either becoming, how can I say, assassinated or being the assassin. All right. Our future is starting to look bleak. What are we to do? Hide? Run away? Nah. We all know that does not work. It's a must that we must stand our ground and fight. Now, this fight is not needed with a knife or a gun. Okay? The best weapons for this is the best trained people to pass along this knowledge and wisdom, which is a teacher. And as important as this individual is, this society does not give teachers the respect that they deserve. This must change. Gentlemen, let's get into it. We're talking about teachers' appreciation.
So this week, I believe, is teacher appreciation. And so that was the impetus for tonight. We just wanted to, well, first of all, give shout out to our teachers. Let's talk about their impact on us, what teachers do for society, and then get into whether or not we value education in this society. So for me, the teachers that stand out are my grammar school teachers, just because those are your first teachers that you're introduced to. My second grade teacher, her name was Miss Bermuda Dickerson. So I think she's down in New Orleans, I think still. Knowledge, yeah. And Miss Dickerson, as you guys know, we came up late 70s, early 80s. And so in early second grade, I think it was 81, 82. Miss Dickerson introduced the concept of Blackness.
All right.
That's where I first learned about the idea of this conceptualization of race. And not in a negative sense. It was just, I remember her always playing the song Black Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
Black Butterfly, and to be young, gifted, and black. And introducing, like when we would do variety shows. Now, some of y'all don't, I'm going to give y'all a minute to remember. Y'all don't remember variety shows. But these used to be shows that the kids would put on at school, and you had to put on your talent and all of that stuff. And we had, she introduced, African dance to us. And so, and the red, black, and the green flag, and these are all concepts to be introduced at a very young age, but good teachers serve as the cornerstone for future development, and at the time, even though you don't appreciate it, you're second grade, you can't appreciate, this concept of Blackness, and things like that, especially coming from Chicago, especially coming up on the South Side, especially not being introduced to other races,
Right.
Race becomes a concept only in the absence of when you're around other people. You know what I'm saying?
When you're amongst other cultures and so forth.
Nupite, Nyong'o, the co-actress from 12 Years a Slave, and the girlfriend of in Wakanda,
right,
says she didn't recognize she was black until she came to the United States. So this idea. So I say all of that to say that, Miss Dickerson, even at second grade, formed the cornerstone of something that would become a building block for the rest of my life, and to take pride in that and to enjoy that. Same teacher, I had Miss V in 7th and 8th grade, and I always struggled with math. And, I remember to this day, she telling me to draw boxes. Part of it was I just couldn't keep my numbers neat. You know how you have to have your numbers lined up, so I had to draw boxes. Like I had to have my boxes.
Keep the number in that box.
Keep the number in the box.
Line it up in the way that it's supposed to be.
Right. Just those kind of simple things. And Rich knows, Tim doesn't, but I even had my mom as an 7th and 8th grade teacher. So we'll talk about that later. But but her thing was reading, like reading and words and languages are weapons. If you can say it with words, you can persuade, so, fostering that lifelong love of reading, was one of her gifts.
All right, Tim, let's hear you, bro.
Well, yeah, I come from a little different perspective. My grammar school teachers were Catholic. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten to 8th grade.
So you got beat.
I definitely got beat. They had the built-in the rulers and all of this. Yeah.
Oh, you had the big paddle.
And the paddle with the holes in it.
Yeah. In first grade, the real thick pencils. They're about yay thick. Yeah.
Those nuns weren't a joke.
You notice how I know. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, so I did have some very good school teachers when I was in grammar school. But I realized that they had the added predicament of trying to teach African American children and them being white. So they were coming from a perspective that, let's teach the kids about their history, but not quite understanding all that we had to go through. And that was a very interesting dynamic. Every kid in there saw that, but I would say they did their best. The school itself was about half African American teachers and half nuns, and most of the nuns were white.
Yeah.
We got a pretty good education, but coming from a religious background, right? Their focus wasn't on science.
It was still more on the Catholicism type level.
Very heavy on theology. Very heavy on theology, and very heavy on not questioning them about the religious texts.
Right.
They used to hate that. And very heavy on discipline.
Yeah.
Very heavy. Much more than public school. I really don't know. I haven't gone to public school until I got into high school, right? Yep. I didn't go in there until I got into high school, and I went to Thornton with Rich. And it was a totally different situation.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like getting thrown.
Yeah, it was an adjustment.
Yeah, it was a big adjustment.
What was the adjustment?
Just the way the kids acted.
Things were more, like you spoke of. It was a big difference. Back then I can remember having to go to church every Thursday morning, and not to do that, and not certain texts to learn about, like you spoke about. It was different, and like you said, the discipline was different, and a little more loose once you got into high school, and you have to understand that adjustment. And for a minute, I have to say a good portion of my freshman year in high school, I was adjusting to, hey, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, especially like with the clothes.
Oh,
You don't have to wear a uniform anymore.
oh yeah.
You know,
I was overjoyed on that one. But go ahead.
Yeah. And the ways that the teachers interacted with the students.
Correct.
Yeah.
They seem to, I don't want to say care less.
Well, how much of that though? I mean, I always am fascinated by the stories of like you always hear Biggie Smalls talk about the teacher who told me I couldn't make it and all of that stuff. And I'm always fascinated by that story because I'm like, who are these crappy teachers? Like, yeah. I mean, I know they are crappy teachers. I mean, in any profession, there's going to be crap, but I've never seen a teacher put down a student. Like, you know how we hear about, the teacher who said I couldn't make it and all that stuff. I was like, no teacher gets out of bed thinking, oh, let me put this kid down or whatever, Now, don't get me wrong. We do put teachers in some impossible situations. The latest round, and we'll talk about again, respect for teachers. I don't know if y'all seen on TikTok where there was a teacher, African-American teacher. She took the girl's phone.
And then the girl got, real sassy with her.
And went to go get the phone.
Right.
And the teacher introduced her to I wish you would.
Yeah.
It was just like you almost heard her switch to that mom voice. Like, right. And
he says, that's the thing of, especially when you're in that teaching profession, and I applaud each and every one of them that can control, because, and what I'm saying is, you have where, they tell you at a job, once you leave the job at the job, leave home at home.
But for these teachers, though, these kids are, so for some of these kids, these teachers are home. This is
no, I agree. I agree. But what I'm saying, that teacher, for instance, even though on some parts of it, the girl needed some discipline. Okay. To be very honest, she needed some discipline.
She needed a touching.
Yeah, but the teacher has to say, okay, this ain't my child. This is at the job. I can't do what I know I should do to her.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I give her a lot of credit for not going further. I mean, like, I've seen some of these. I mean, I worked out of school where on my first day, a kid threatened to kill a teacher.
Yeah,
and so where did we get to the point where I just couldn't imagine in our heyday disrespecting a teacher? Like, that was
right. Getting to that point.
No. I mean, first of all the teacher had to do was threaten to call home.
Right.
That was enough.
And
like
you,
that.
You done straightened up real quick.
Hold on.
Like, my bad.
Hold on. Yeah, my bad. Hold on. Like, I think we need to
let's talk about this real quick.
Right. Like, that was for a teacher to call home.
Yeah.
That was sanctimount to, you did what? Oh, okay. Like, that, it wasn't even no back and forth, no discussion.
Right.
Whether or not, well, I said this. I said, no. Your teacher done called my house on my phone on my time to talk about you. What do you think you can say?
Right.
Well, abba-dabba, right. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you had to go, and not only did you have to, but you had to go apologize too. Now I gotta go apologize. Like, right. And so I just don't know what has happened. And we're literally talking about a generation, because that's literally our generation to this next generation, where we've gotten to the point where we're thinking it's okay to disrespect teachers.
Right.
Not to honor teachers. So I remember, I mean, Mr. Little, like, hitting a kid with a ruler, like he broke the yardstick. But at some point, we also understood.
Yeah.
Well, he had it coming. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
first thing, like, what Shorty do?
What Shorty like? Like, you. It was this tacit understanding. Like, first of all, He had to get the yardstick. Never mind that part. Like usually the yardstick, the grabbing of the yardstick was enough to cease and desist any transgressions going on. Oh, he got the
or even to look towards that yardstick.
That was enough.
You seen it in the corner of the room. You like, he looked that way.
Yeah.
So are you all blaming all of this on liberals because of the rules changing in the schools? You can't hit the students.
We allow businesses to start determining our educational model. And it all started with that No Child Left Behind.
That was a bad policy.
Yeah, I mean, No Child Left Behind.
That was a pretty bad policy.
When we started saying, hey, businesses, because then schools became prep factories. So, there's a reason we're falling behind in education. It's not just because, the Chinese teach, what I'm saying? But part of teaching is also creativity. Teaching is an art. It's not a science. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that there are different modalities that work for different students and how they learn. And a good teacher is able to adapt their educational models and stuff like that to adapt to the student and to make sure that the kids, now you're not going to reach every kid and every teacher, there's just kids that you're not going to gel with, mash with, saying in any profession,
Right. But what also about classroom size? Because, it's a lot better nowadays. We probably all remember
25.
Yeah, something like 25 to 1 or 25 to 1 or whatever. They say that the average now is about 18 to 1, but I still think
I was just looking at statistics.
Looking at still too high. 18 is still,
In 2000, the average student teacher ratio was 15.9. So it's 15.9 to 1 student. So about 16 to 1. I don't know what it is. And this is the latest reporting model. We'll get into it.
You do have those places that have those teachers' assistants, which is a good thing in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That assistant can, break down some of that and
definitely if you have students who are falling behind, the teacher assistant can take them apart or separate them and help them with it. Mm-hmm. I think 15 of anything below third grade is way too much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we know the attentions that age group requires, and you're responsible for teaching a lot of them. So I think that's part of it. I think we took our need to determine performance and comparing it, like this metric of intelligence. Like, I get it. Like at a certain grade, you're all supposed to be reading at a certain grade level. Mm-hmm. But when we started doing all of this testing, and what's the purpose of this testing? Like, what I'm saying? I understand we have to have some critical measure for determining whether or not a student has mastered the subject taught by that teacher. First and foremost, are we testing too early? Like, why are we testing anybody below 5th grade? You know what I'm saying? Like,
agreed.
You're barely learning, and things like that.
Between that time, you're still learning how to be social with a little bit
how
of
to be a student. Yeah,
And that was the problem that I had when researching this topic, trying to remove the education part from what the teachers are doing, because the teachers they are confined by the educational model that they get put on, like the test. They must have those tests, right?
Yeah.
The educational system and the school system tells them that they must do these things, right? The teacher might want to go a whole nother route, and they're just handcuffed.
Look at Florida right now. You have teachers down there scared to teach because you can't say gay. Mm-hmm. You can't teach. How do you teach Civil War without mentioning race?
Right.
How do we teach the truth? So we have politicians, people who have no business in the teaching profession or a science profession or any profession, intruding into this world and dictating. A lot of the things that are put into into educational books and teachers' books are dictated by Texas, because Texas is one of the largest purchasers of school textbooks.
Yeah.
So they get to dictate what is taught, or California. You know what I'm saying? So so there's that. There's also let's just jump into it. We have been vilifying teachers for years. You know, we've blamed them unfairly so and unilaterally for the shortcomings of students, you know, and not performing. But we haven't taken a hard look at what we're asking teachers to do. You know, like, so we're talking, first of all, we don't pay them. Let's be honest.
Nowhere near,
Nowhere. I mean, I just read that the average teacher salary is $65. Well, okay, that's cool if you in Boise, Idaho. But I'm sure that's not the average teacher salary in Boise, Idaho. So when we say the average teacher salary, that means across the United States. So I'm pretty sure if you're not making 65 in Boise, Idaho, like, yeah, I can make 65 in Boise, but 65 in California
ain't gonna work.
No, that's you.
That ain't gonna work.
You on food stamps,
right?
You know, first of all, we can't even call it a career if we're looking at all of these teachers and they are having to get second jobs. That's not a profession.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's a job. You know, we know that on average, teachers spend approximately $750 to $900 of their own money for schoolroom supplies.
Yeah.
And that's on average. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you know, all of us have had kids grow up and you get that list at the beginning of the school year. And you're like, wait a minute, why am I paying all of these taxes? Why do my son needs 5 reams of paper? 5 reams? Who I don't have 5 reams of paper. You know, I got to bring in 20 packs of pencils. Every kid got to bring in 2 boxes of Kleenex. You know, everybody got to bring in index cards. Yeah. You know, you're just like, well, what are my taxes for? Right. You know, like, and so that's what I'm saying is like, we don't value teachers. And I know this is Teacher Appreciation Week, but there's so much we've spent the last 15, 20 years vilifying teachers.
Right.
You know, we don't pay them. We drive them out. We're asking them to do more with less. You know, when they go on strike, you know, we don't want to support them.
And
because
they really vilify them then.
Well, that's because it's inconvenient. Now I got to sit home with my kid. And let's be honest, a lot of parents found out, oh, this teaching thing ain't no joke. You know,
trying to homeschool.
No, trying to homeschool with COVID. Yeah, when COVID came in.
Yeah.
Oh, like this. Oh, this is real.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
This is real, dude.
Right.
Like, you know, now you get to see how little Billy and little Junie act when you are not there. You know,
and what that teacher has to deal with on a constant basis, not only with Billy and Junie, but also another 15 of them.
Yeah. You know, and so,
and the fact that you have to. It's not just teaching. You have to plan. You have to plan that stuff out, like the whole year. You know what I mean? Step by step. You know, it's a lot of.
You're going to be evaluated. You're going to be judged, and you know, you're not judged. I don't think over like 1 or 2 days. Like, you know, like you come in on that one day and you just having a bad day, or the kids are having a bad day. You know, then you're judged on that. You know, so we have these teacher evaluations. You know, who may be judged by someone who hasn't been in the classroom, you know, or what happens if this was, you know, I remember, you know, you try not to overload any teacher with, you know, a handful of, I don't want to say bad kids, but kids that are less than stellar, you know.
They need a little extra special attention.
Little extra special, but, you know, maybe because you're the good teacher, they stuck all of them in your room with the hope that, you know, you could get them to straighten up and act right and fly right, you know. You know, we've cut down on insurance. It used to be that teaching was a profession that allowed you to, you know, take care of your family, you know, go on trips and stuff like that. And it's not that anymore. So
no, you're not going on any trips.
No. The trip to the store, you know,
But
that's
what do y'all think of this now? A lot of other countries have school for the children year round. We're one of the few that still don't. Should we switch to that? Should we switch to, I mean, at least 11 months out of the year that kids in school?
Well, go ahead.
I think that both models will work, but I think that if you're gonna have kids on summer break, you need to fill that 3 months with something extra, right? So, like one idea that I had was maybe take them out to like a natural setting, a field camp or something, and have the teachers go along with them. They're still getting paid, right? The whole
Okay.
year, have them go out there too, learn natural things and how to survive and how to deal
And
with
then,
nature.
and right, and then also gives them a certain respect to nature as well.
Right.
A lot of times, especially if the kid is growing up in an urban setting, half of them couldn't tell you, oh, that is a ficus tree or whatever.
Right.
I mean, well, let's deal with those. So first of all, like when teachers get paid over the summer, they're taking a voluntary decrease in their salary. So they get paid so that they can get paid over the summer. So they're making less with the idea is that their salary is spread out, So that's one. Two, we're asking them to contribute their own money to something that should be a public expense. So $750 to $900 at the beginning of the school year, plus you got to get all the supplies and stuff. But are Americans, I think the better question is, are Americans willing to pay the cost to have the finest education system in the United States, in the world? We know that we don't. We know that education is failing students of color. We know that teaching is the one profession that has the highest attrition rate. A lot of people are thinking about leaving. And as I said, we have created this. I was just reading the statistics. 74.4% of teachers are white. 8.9% of teachers are Hispanic. 6.9% are African American. And 2.1% are Asian. So now, not only that, we're dealing with the lack of diversity when our country is getting more diverse. So what is that impetus that hinders us from attracting and drawing more people in and qualified people into education? I mean, let's be honest. If we took a poll right now, which one of us would want to teach?
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
Not at this point. No.
No. I mean,
and then you always have to go under the threat that,
especially in a high school, would you go back and teach at Thornton?
No way.
See?
No way. No way.
You ain't going to go teach at your alma mater?
No. I will stay far away from that. Far.
Go ahead.
Oh.
No, go ahead. You about to say something?
Yeah, I was. So the education and the funding is a big problem. But like when you get to high school, when you get to the high school level, also the way the parents think about the education of the students is different. I just heard a podcast with some teachers discussing some things about how when you have the parent teachers conferences, the meetings,
Yes,
no parents show up at some of these schools.
Yes.
In grammar school, every parent shows up. But it's something about when you get to high school.
No, not even in high school. I mean, even in the grammar school, I remember because I worked in the education system as a case manager, and it was always a battle or a fight about how to get parents to come out.
Right, yeah.
It's like, well, we need to offer meals or, teachers, schools have become resource centers. And that's what I'm saying. Like, America has a good oral game. Like, you think this is the country that, but when you look at it and you just like, yo, we charging schools with providing social services that should be taken care of or provided for by our government, and we don't do it. So, so schools become these resources that, communities need to thrive, especially in your inner cities. And look, it's amazing to me, not amazing, but it's darn near shocking when you go to like a good school, like, it's and fully funded. Kids got all kind of science projects. They got kits. they got Chromebooks, they got, things like that. And then you go to schools that are barely scraping by, and it's just like, this isn't right. This isn't fair. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is the school in Evanston as rich, and we know that academic history is tied to academic future, but we refuse to fund schools in a way that they need to be funded.
And that's one of the other problems with the test and so forth, because one of the things when they have them take all those tests and all this, the government pays a certain amount of money. Now they pay more if a school is succeeding than they are if a school is failing.
It's also attendance too. Right? Remember, there's also the attendance,
though, because on the fact that you want these good teachers, you want these teachers to come in here.
Do we really want good teachers? I mean, if we did, we would pay them.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
that's exactly what I'm saying. They don't bring the funding to these schools that really need help.
So is it actually the community that we should be focusing on to try to support the teachers?
Yeah, but also I think the community also needs to go out to the person in political power saying, hey, you want to make it another 4 years, 6 years, or 2 years, whatever your spot is, you want to make it in there, you want to, get another set of it and all that, you need to bring some money for our children so that they can catch up in the education that they need so that they can make it in this world.
So, okay, so I wonder if you all can answer me this question. Why does it seem like there's such a big difference between southern states or conservative states and some of the liberal states when it comes to education and funding and all of that? Because I know for a fact, if you go down to like Alabama, those teachers down there, they don't make hardly anything. They definitely have to get another job, to support themselves. It seems like, okay, the parents don't really mind if their children get a high level of education for the most part. I'm not sure if I'm right on that, but what do you all think about that?
I mean, there's always been this gap, and I don't even think the North does a better job of it. I mean, I don't think we value teachers, period, based, and when I say value, I mean pay as it relates to pay. So the teacher in Mississippi or Alabama is making poverty rates just as the teacher in Chicago or, Baltimore. Like, I mean, granted, the teacher in Chicago and Baltimore is probably making more, but I think if you look at the average buying power of a teacher, I think they would be relatively the same. Two, we know the South. We perpetrated this myth that education is the panacea for all our troubles and woes, but yet, because as we were growing up, we were told go to school, do good in school, get a good job, take care of your family, get you a good home. I don't think that's true anymore.
No.
I think that part of the American dream is dead or dying.
I mean, that stood also with it's what you know and not who you know. We all know that it's kind of flipped. It's who you know, not really what you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking to someone last night, and I was like, my son's getting ready to go to college, and he just doesn't seem excited about it. And I was like, Are you excited? He was like, no, not really. I'm like, how are you not excited? But the person I was talking to said, well, this generation has more knowledge and exposure, or have seen behind the curtain more than we did. Like when we were coming up, high school, we were told, get a job, you do well in school, you get a good job, you do a good job, you get that. And I think this generation that has looked behind the curtain and said, nah, I see all this loan that you got to take out. I see you working 70, 80 hours. You ain't going on vacations. You don't seem happy. You get all of this education,
Yeah.
so they come into it, kind of like Adam and Eve after they ate from the tree of knowledge. It's like, ooh, I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? And this is not worth it, Um, I think the bigger question is how do we turn it around? Because we can't keep going. I think we can all agree that the trajectory that we are on is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. We have more teachers leaving the profession. We don't have enough teachers coming in. So what are we going to do to incentivize, especially in the lack of diversity? Like 74.4 teachers are female. So that only leaves 25% are male.
Right.
How many? And we know that students are impacted by teachers, and especially those teachers who look like them. I did not get my first male teacher until 4th grade. I don't think my boys had male teachers throughout all of grammar school.
Yeah.
I think that matters.
Yes.
When I'll give you a perfect example. When I was working in the schools, I had a partner. Her name was Valerie, and we would go in and teach together at the high school. And Valerie was older than me, but she never looked older. But she was older than me. And the kids came up to at the end of the school year, and they kept referring to her as my wife. And you're like, Miss Valerie isn't my wife. Oh, she isn't? No. But y'all do everything together. I was like, yeah. But to them, what they were seeing was a positive black and male female relationship. And so their natural assumption was that we were married. So we know, and I'm glad they got to see that, and also get to see, like, no, not only within the context of a marriage, but this is how black men are supposed to treat black women, and black women are supposed to teach black men, and interact with black. So we know these interactions have impact. So if you're not interacting with a black male, you as a black child, as a black son, or even as a black female, that's a long time to go through your educational career and not to have that, and we all know that when and where I am, my race enters with me. So the perspective that you spoke of as it relates to the Civil War and, race, I have a different perspective, and I can bring that to bear as a teacher in the classroom. But we're going to continue to see a lack of diversity, both as it relates to race and as it relates to men. We know that statistically, students tend to do better with men teachers. That's not to throw fault, on the women teachers, but we have to accept these differences. At some point. We can't deny it. You know what I'm saying? We have to accept these differences. And we know that male teachers tend to have a little bit more of a higher impact than female teachers, So the question is, what are we going to do to bring more people into the profession?
Well, one thing I do believe is that, we see the importance of teachers and all that. They need to be celebrated more than what they are. They get a week. If a teacher goes above and beyond, maybe one out of a group of 100 or 200 may get a Golden Apple Award. What else? And go ahead, because I was just about to say, and that almost sounds like that's about it, and that's wrong right there, because out of that 200, and I was just throwing a figure out there. Out of that 200, it may be 70 of them that does an absolute great job. It's just the fact that one out of that possible 70 or whatever, they did just a little bit more, and they look like, well, I'm not really appreciated,
Yeah, I'm just reading this. If you give me 44% of teachers quit in their first 5 years.
And that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, 44, and they don't just quit their current positions; they often leave teaching altogether. This is a much higher rate than most other occupations in the U.S., including those known for high burnout rates, such as police officers. Experts have estimated that almost half of teachers quit within their first 5 years on a job. Recently, when they were able to find this, they found that these old estimates were generally right. So that hasn't changed. Which countries are teachers paid the most? Teachers are paid the most in Luxembourg, where they make an average of $101,360. Germany, $80,407. Canada, $71,664. Netherlands, 71,024. Australia, 65,658. The average teacher will impact over 3,000 students throughout the course of their career. With 3.8 million teachers in the U.S., that's a lot of students whose lives will be impacted by teachers. Teachers often leave within the first 5 years, as we have said. Often they cite low pay, lack of support, or other personal circumstances as the reason for leaving. By 2025, it is estimated that U.S. demand for teachers will exceed the supply by more than 100,000. 100,000. So that's how short we are. You know what I'm saying? And that's with a 15-to-1 ratio, roughly. So, think about the number of students that, we are disenfranchising. So if America was serious, we would pay. We would provide them with the resources that they need. We would decrease the teacher to student ratio. We would provide them with the resources that they need. And that not only includes teaching resources, but teachers need to be able to teach and be able to refer out for social service issues. So you need social service people in the schools. You need people who can support the students or teacher aides, and things like that. But we are just as a country not willing to do that.
And that's kind of what I mean, that we need to get on our government officials' tail on some of these things, because if you look at it, when they turn around and say, oh, we need to make spending cuts, what's one of the first things?
Education.
Why?
Because young people don't vote. That is
true.
That's true. I mean, we can make an argument like, should we be lowering the voting age? Yeah, probably.
But even those of us who do vote, who get out there every time, we see this happening, and it's a repeating thing. We need to be on that tail saying, hey, you can't do this no more. Figure out something else. But you cannot cut education. I'm sorry, but why is education being cut, but then you're spending more on weapons of war?
So
somebody tell me something.
I think the problem is when you kind of decouple the public school system with the private school system. If you have a lot of money, you don't really care if the public school system is getting funded correctly. You know what I mean?
True.
And I hate to throw race in this particular subject, but when you think that your tax money is going to somebody else's kids, you don't want to fund it. I was in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and they had a referendum on one of the votes. They were asking for a new high school for the kids, right? The high school, the kids were packed in this old high school, and I think it was like maybe $5 a month from every household to get them a new high school. And then they voted it down.
Yeah.
They voted it down. I was surprised. I was like, $5? Who can't afford $5?
Right.
And it was a brand new neighborhood, houses built up from the ground up. They can't afford $5 more a month. It was ridiculous.
I mean, we've all seen that referendum, and you're like, "Oh, my kid's not in grammar school."
But then it goes back and it hits you in the long run. That's what he's talking about with the $5.
Yeah. I mean, the kids are gonna, if you don't do right by them, eventually it's gonna come back to haunt you.
I mean, we're seeing it now. I mean, I listened to this podcast, and I know we're getting to the top of the hour, where we're talking about how we done messed up reading. Like, we stopped teaching phonetics in school. And I mean, I know it is always the older generation that laments something that has changed, right? But, I lament these kids working on Chromebooks. Like you don't learn how to write. You don't learn. Remember, there was something about writing when you had to write your stuff out and your parents checked it and you learn how to write. Now everything is done on this Chromebook and you never see it. And then you get something from your kid. You're like, what the hell is this? Dude, like you can't write. You can't, and it was that process of working with your kid to correct the homework and write it correctly or how you think it's supposed to. That was an educational experience.
Yeah.
And we've taken that away. We've taken out, for ill for elk, and I guess I get it, cursive. Like I remember I was doing something and I wrote it in cursive and the kids were like, you want me to draw that? Draw. What are you talking about? Draw. Oh, dude. Like, what is that? Like, that's like, so it's like, well, how do we expect kids to sign their names? Like we've taken cursive out. We give them Chromebooks, but I remember we couldn't even get a calculator until 4th or 5th grade.
Right.
It was a basic calculator too. Like the 8th graders got the good calculators.
The Texas
to that Texas Instrument. You got the blue one.
Right.
The little blue one that like the little blue or the white one. That was it.
Right.
And it was forced memorization of your timetables, and so I say all of that to say is like, yeah, we stopped teaching phonetics.
Right.
They started teaching sight words and having the kids guess what and I'm like, so you tell a kid to sound something now, and they're like, "What? Sound it out." I don't know what that means. Like, so we allowed the businesses into the school, and we allowed, it became we found out that education was a grab bag, and if you can figure out your way to finesse your way into it and say, "Oh, this works," then we allowed that in the system. When in actuality, they didn't work, and what we're learning is, yes, teaching has not changed, but there's a reason teaching hasn't changed. We know how humans learn. We've been doing it since the time of Socrates and Plato. Repetition, discussion, discourse. These are the fundamental building blocks of learning. If I hear it, I'll think about it. I think if I see it, I remember it. If I write it, I learn it. Those axioms haven't changed. Like the human hasn't, like, yeah, we've gotten stronger, faster, but we still learn. Like we need to stop cutting and looking at how we can enhance those things from the past. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, what's this new math? What's the new math thing?
I can't remember the name
of it. The new math, right?
Yes.
And you just like, wait a minute, math been taught the same way. We all started on abacus,
right.
And and all of that stuff.
I remember back in the day, I tried to teach my kids the number line. There was something brand new that they were doing that has nothing to do with the number line.
Yeah, and you're no, that you're doing it wrong. Bob? You're doing it wrong. Like, yeah, what are you talking about? Like, no, you do this. You put the 0, da da da. Right. What?
It's like a gimmick.
It was. We took all of these other methods. Like, so it might be like 32 times 64. And so you're supposed to round 32 down to 30, 64 up to 65, multiply this, but because you rounded down by 4 and you got to add the 2, and that gets you, and you're like, no, 30, 64 times 32. 2 down 4 is 6, 2 down, 2 down 0. Next line, and like it took longer.
Right.
But
you gotta do the steps.
Yeah, like this new math that y'all, why was it necessary? The old math wasn't working.
But then I get that people learn differently, and maybe that's why they brought it in that way. Even though I still don't understand it, but I do get the fact that people learn differently, and maybe that's what it is.
I get that people learn differently too, but people been learning differently for eons though. Like it was like, Adam and Eve learned, and
it's a reason why they teach it a long way to do things,
right?
So you can understand what you're doing, instead of just putting down numbers that they want you to put in this place and that place,
Yeah. We all had to pass the Constitution. Remember, you had the basic skills exam that you had to take. Like you had to, it was that test that took like 30 minutes. You had to like read a recipe, read a map, You know, it was just to make sure that you were reading at a sixth
Certain
grade level.
level.
Yeah, everybody's supposed to be able to, like, because I remember he kept saying newspapers are read on the sixth grade level.
Right.
You know, and I think, I mean, for ill or for ill, you know, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter have led to a dumbing down of our generation because nobody reads the whole thing anymore.
That's true.
There's nobody in writing or reading. I remember in sixth grade, Mr. King or Mr. Hammerman, I can't remember. We had to bring in articles and you had to cut the articles out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Put them in a photo album and,
Right.
you know, something that was significant, something that we had growing up, Ebony Jr., you know, or, you know, just you had to read Ebony Jr., you know, or you had to read Jet Magazine. You know, these are magazines and things that teachers would make you read, you know, in class to make sure, and then test your comprehension of it. Like, what is this article saying?
Yes.
And things like that. And we've just kind of fundamentally done with that. Like, everything has to be confined to a tweet. Like, that's all your news. Like, and we wonder why people are so disproportionately one-sided or anything, because we're not reading or consuming anything that gives a very general view or objective view or anything like that. And so we took that away from teachers. Like, you know, we've told teachers what they can't do, but then we want to give them guns,
Right.
you know, to protect our students. You know, like you don't want him to teach critical race theory, but you gonna trust him with a gun?
Yeah.
Or what was the other one I seen that they had some invention in the classroom? I'm trying to remember. It could have been Alabama or something like that, where the teacher was pulling out literally a wall for a safe room.
Man.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's like
ridiculous.
straight up.
Yeah. That's where we are as a society. So,
You know, but going back to that CRT and all that, that's something, and I'm not just saying CRT or African American history.
critical race theory. Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is that, you know, it may be best if there's a requirement or close to a requirement where you're learning different cultures, because we are becoming more and more of a diverse nation, that we need to learn a little bit extra of, I don't know, Asian history or
Indigenous people, African American. Yeah, I mean,
that,
but
on the fact of respecting one another.
But you feel that way,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, we're in the minority. But the way things are going now, they feel like that's an attack on America.
Yeah.
If you try to teach other cultures, other religions that are not, you know, white Christian, you know what I mean?
No, I understand that they feel that it's an attack, but then yet, if you go historical into some of the things that have been done over the years across the world, and now you brought the world to your doorstep, you know, they're going to bring it with them anyway. At least, you know, have it where you can respect one another. You may not like the person, but you could at least respect them. You know what I mean?
I mean, we took out humanities out of the school.
Yes.
You know, we took out
Civics
out of the school. We took out wood shop, metal shop, mechanics.
Yep.
These were all things that help create well-rounded students, you know, and you know, as someone who did well, at least early in his history academically, other kids who may not have that academic gift would, you know, be better at, you know, metal shop,
right,
or woodwork. Like, every student in the school should feel like they are the master of something. Like, you know, like for me, it's history. I love history. You know, I love social studies. You know, math was just not my thing, you know.
Join the crowd on that one.
Yeah, you know, but you know, I love history. You know, I was good at it. There were other kids who were good at, you know, science. You know, I was decent at science, at least biology, chemistry. Yeah. But you know, so
well, you made it through, bro.
Hey,
you made it through.
Hey, geometry. Hey, my best friend got me through that one. So if it wasn't for him, I'd still be sitting in sophomore year trying to pass geometry. Ooh. So, you know, some side angle side and all of that. So I didn't understand.
Trust me, I could go match with those horror stories. But go ahead,
man. Look, you know, geometry was no joke. same thing with like chemistry. I struggled with chemistry. Biology, I did well. History, I always did well. English, I did okay. But we, like you were saying, we took out those other classes: civics, humanities, auto shop, woodworking, metalworking. So we need to look at bringing those things back into the schools. I think we've catered too much to the academic. We've pushed this fallacy of that college is for everybody. It ain't.
Right.
It ain't necessary. Half the jobs in the United States that they say you need a college degree for,
You
really
don't.
don't. You really don't. It's just a way we have continued to use to separate and divide us as a people. It's like, well, what changed between 1980 and 2000 where, all of a sudden you need all of these college degrees, and then not only that, it's like, wait a minute. So I'm going to go to school to make more money to pay you back more in debt so I can be deeper in debt just so I can make a little bit more money.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it used to be that education, at least college education, provided you a safety net to, for your future. Well, hell, we looking at what, 3 banks in the last month closing?
Yes.
We look at the tech bubble. All of those people degree and, getting laid off. So, but who isn't? Carpenters, plumbers, electricians, barbers, welders always need welders. You always forever seeing welders, warehouse people.
Right.
Someone sent me an article, talking about, in Florida, he's making it illegal for you to even transport someone that's undocumented and all of that stuff. And I'm like, yo, like, it's about to be real expensive in Florida when avocado costs $18 each. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
well, they're trying to lower the working age for children now. So
which is insane to me.
Labor force right now.
That's
your new labor force.
And I think the one of the Dakotas, and I know in Arkansas they're trying to lower it because they can't get enough people to fill the meat factories.
Right. Yeah, get some kids in there.
Get those kids in. I was like,
put them in the mines.
Yeah, the whole reason we had with labor laws was because we thought it was wrong for 14-year-olds to be without their hands.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so
they're going right back. They reverted.
And that's insane.
True.
That's
absolutely
that's
true.
what I said. America has a good game, but we don't care about anybody who's not part of the top 1%.
Oh yeah.
We take in, but we never pay out. And part of that, to kind of bring this full circle, is our teachers. If you want the basic of a society, of a democratic society, at the very base, you got to have people who are teaching, because they create the culture and teach the culture in which we operate. You know what I'm saying? And if you're unwilling to do that, well, you reap what you sow. And you're seeing why we now have teachers as one of the highest professions where people are leaving with the highest dissatisfaction rate. We vilified them. We don't want to pay them. We don't respect them. Like you said, if something changed between when the mere threat of calling the teacher, of calling your parents from a teacher was enough to get someone to act up, or get someone to do right, to the TikTok videos where this girl felt it was okay to go and snatch her phone from the teacher's desk and didn't expect the whoop'em that she got. It's like, oh, you can't touch me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a good hypothesis.
And that's what I mean, that she kind of did need it, but
Well, if you look at the way that the teachers treat the students, the parents that are most involved with their kids, the teacher will pay much more attention to those students. So, I mean, if you want your child to get a good education from the little energy that the teacher has to give in a big class like that,
right,
then the parents need to be involved. You know what I mean?
That's another way,
like squeaky wheel gets the the order.
So
kinda.
maybe if it's required that every classroom not only has a teacher but a teacher assistant, then maybe some of that can stop, and it can be that that involvement from those students that the parents don't take the time with the children for whatever reason. It could be a good or bad reason. Who knows? And I'm not in every house, so I can't.
No, you know how your kid is.
Right.
You know how your kid is, and if the teacher is reaching out, mind you, and the teacher's reaching out on their own time, then that's something you need to take heed of and not question. We watched Abbott Elementary, and there was an episode where she was expressing her frustration with this one student, and the mother was like, "Well, it's your fault."
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It's no. Like, the fact is that this teacher is reaching out, trying to convey to you that your child needs additional support or something.
Mm.
And I think part of it is you take it personally as a parent, and it's not meant to be personal.
Right.
Your kids ain't you. You know what I'm saying? But if little Billy ain't listening, yeah, that's a reflection on me, because clearly I haven't conveyed to you that this is something I take seriously and I value your education, and you don't need to be wasting this teacher's time.
Right.
So I think that's where we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have come to that top of the hour, which this conversation it can keep going, y'all, but we got to keep on the time limit, everybody. So final thoughts. I'm gonna start with you, Tim.
Well, I think that the teachers have many obstacles that they need to overcome, but one of the best things that I can say that may get things back on track is if the parents and the teachers work more as a team and to get involved with the students. I would say that the more that the parents are involved, the better outcome they will have with their particular, child. Yeah, that's what I got.
Go ahead,
And first and foremost, I just want to give a shout out to all the teachers. I come from a 2-parent teacher household, so we know how hard you work. I hope that you all enjoy your summer break. I'm hearing various time count line, like from 14 to 21 days some of these teachers have left. Enjoy your summer. We know that we appreciate you. You're doing good work. You're doing God's work. Don't be discouraged. Don't be disappointed. All you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is your best, and your best is good enough. All right. And that's a lesson for all of us. It's as I always try to end on a high note, make sure that you appreciate yourself this week. I was talking to someone yesterday, and he said, give yourself permission to fail. It's okay. It's not the end goal that matters. It's the process and who you become in the process. So, just keep that in mind. I'm not sure what kind of week you're having. We're having a beautiful week this week. Make sure you take some time out to enjoy this week. Go outside, get you some sun, get you some air, and make it okay for you to fail and appreciate yourself this week.
All right, everybody, listen up. We have to put in this work to make this change. Number one, I applaud every teacher out there, and we as people who are thankful for what they do, we have to have their backs. All right. So as I was saying through this show, we have to go to these government officials and push policy that's going to help the teachers, which overall are going to help the children. And you do something like that, you won't have some of these tragedies that we have had in Chicago lately, like these 4 teenagers killing a cop. All right.
Oh, they were teenagers?
Yes.
Okay.
So think about that, everybody, and let's get on it. This is Elevated Vibes from IntellectualRadio.com, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Peace.